From Virginia, Mr. Good for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Speaker Gingrich, for joining us. I would like you to take my whole 5 minutes and just tell us everything we're doing wrong in Congress and everything you would do differently if you were still the Speaker. And I'm only half kidding, so I'll give you a few moments to expound upon that, but thank you for joining us. We have spent, as you know better than anybody, trillions of dollars over the last 60 years in the name of the great war on poverty with very little to show for it in terms of tangible results in making a difference in the lives of those some would purport to desire to help. And this is coming from someone who I grew up on food stamps. I grew up with free school lunch back when you were one of few in your school, and I grew up in an inner city school system where I was one of the few kids on school lunch. I grew up with groceries left on my porch from other families who took a benevolent interest in my family. I grew up without a car, had to walk everywhere. Our family did, had to work and pay my own way through school. But what we have done, as you know, with all of this spending is very little to show for it other than hiring bureaucrats, growing the national debt, expanding the culture of dependency. But a moment for us, as you well know, was the 1996 welfare reform law that you spearheaded, which replaced the open-ended aid to families with dependent children with the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF. Can you tell us about the work on that and the results of that? Can you hear me, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. Welfare reform began in 1965 when then candidate Ronald Reagan, running for governor, first came up with the idea that we ought to return to a work-oriented welfare system. There were various experiments, the efforts to get things done. It was very, very hard to get it through the Congress as it was organized prior to 1994. But there were occasional opportunities offered, exemptions offered by mostly HHS, the Health and Human Services, and people like Tommy Thompson in Wisconsin, and John Engler in Michigan, and George Allen in Virginia began to take advantage of that, and they began to notice that if you emphasized work and build your program around work, that you had all sorts of second and third order effects. At the same time, we went and studied, I personally went to New York and studied America Works, which was a long-term recovery program sponsored by Mario Cuomo in the 80s, and which had developed a very specific program for taking people who were very long-term welfare recipients and basically taking them by the hand for 6 months to a year until they thoroughly understood the work ethic, thoroughly understood how to go to work, et cetera, because there are a lot of complexities that those of us who grow up in a work-oriented family learn from showing up on time to dressing correctly to making sure you're accurate in giving change. I mean, all sorts of stuff. And so the America Works model, and we took the lessons learned at the state level. We actually asked the states to send us their top welfare people who had been running the programs. And then we worked with President Clinton, and we gradually hammered out a bill which basically got about half the Democrats. I think it was split like 98 yes and 98 no.
Would that we could do that today?
Well, I think you can. You know, they didn't vote because they liked me. They voted because when they went back home, people back home said, yeah, that's what I want. Well, every study we've done, we run a project called the American Majority Project, which you can see at AmericanMajorityProject.com. And the work ethic is very, very high value for the American people. So a program that reestablished the work ethic would be important. And that has a psychological impact on the children. I mean, if your parents do nothing all day, if they sit around waiting for the next government check to come in, if they are totally dependent, you are learning a set of habits that cripple you for the rest of your life. And so it's very important, one, to go through the system and take out everything which is anti-marriage, every single incentive that encourages people not to get married or not to stay married. And two, to take out everything which discourages work. You make those two changes, and in a matter of a very short time, you'll have a much healthier country, and you'll have children who are growing up in much healthier environments.
Thank you so much. That was the case for me. I was taught to work hard and the value of work. And you're right, the work ethic and supporting intact family units, great deterrent to poverty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize